She walked into the courtroom as the respected magistrate, but froze when she saw the defendant was her ex-husband, the man whose perfect image had shattered their marriage 3 years ago. When she discovers the evidence against him has been tampered with, Naomi makes a shocking decision that will either save Graham or destroy them both. What she doesn't know is that betrayal runs deeper than either could imagine, with someone close to Graham orchestrating his downfall. As old wounds reopen and new feelings emerge, they'll discover whether truth can rebuild what image destroyed, and if second chances come at too high a price. Subscribe right now and drop a comment if you've ever had to choose between protecting someone who broke your heart or watching them fall. Graham Wilder checked his watch as he walked up the wide stone steps of Municipal Hall. The morning sun warmed his face, but it did nothing to settle his nerves. His newest building project had been shut down last week without warning, and today he'd finally get some answers. "You've got this," Ethan said beside him. As Graham's operations manager and closest friend, Ethan knew how much was riding on this hearing. Graham straightened his navy tie and smoothed his light brown hair. At 33, he had built his development company from nothing. One small beach house renovation had turned into a thriving business that transformed old buildings into beautiful new spaces. Today's hearing threatened all of it. Just stay calm, Graham told himself. Answer their questions. This is just a mistake. The Municipal Hall lobby was cool and quiet. Marble floors echoed under their dress shoes as Graham signed in at the front desk. The clerk handed him a visitor badge. "Hearing room 3, she said. "Down the hall on your right." Graham nodded his thanks and headed toward the room. His phone buzzed with a text from his half-sister Vivian. "Show them who's boss. Call me the second it's over." He tucked the phone away with a sigh. Vivian always wanted to fight. As the PR expert in the family, she saw every problem as a battle to win. But Graham just wanted this fixed quietly. "Ready?" Ethan asked as they reached the door. "Let's get this over with," Graham said. He pushed open the door and stepped into hearing room 3. The small courtroom had about 20 seats, half of them filled with city staff and a few curious locals. A large wooden bench sat at the front, still empty. Graham took his place at the table marked for respondents. The side door opened, and Graham looked up to see who would be running his hearing. His heart stopped. Walking to the bench, in the black robe of a magistrate, was Naomi Ellis, his ex-wife. Her dark brown skin glowed under the fluorescent lights, her black hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked exactly as she had 3 years ago when she left him, except now she carried herself with even more confidence. A soft gasp rippled through the room. In a small coastal city like theirs, everyone knew everyone's business. And everyone remembered when the promising young couple had suddenly split. Graham couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe right. Naomi's eyes met his for just a second before she looked down at her papers. If she was surprised to see him, she hid it well. "Good morning," she said to the room, her voice steady and professional. "This hearing is now in session." Graham's mouth was dry. Ethan nudged him gently as Naomi called his case. Good morning, Your Honor," Graham stammered, then corrected himself. "I mean, Madam Magistrate?" Naomi nodded, not looking directly at him. "Mr. Wilder, you're here to address code violations at the Harborview property. Case number CC 2025-428, is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am. Let's proceed." Naomi opened a folder and began reviewing the charges. "The city alleges that your company violated 3 building codes, resulting in the stop work order issued last Thursday." Graham listened as she listed each violation, his confusion growing. These weren't small paperwork issues. They were serious safety violations that could get someone hurt. But none of it made sense. His team was meticulous about safety. Naomi picked up a packet labeled Evidence. She flipped through it slowly, her brow furrowing. She checked the timestamps, then frowned. "Counsel, please approach," she said. The city attorney walked forward. Graham, representing himself, did the same. Standing just feet from Naomi felt surreal. Up close, he could see the small gold earrings she wore, ones he'd given her on their first anniversary. His heart squeezed. "There's an issue with this evidence," Naomi said quietly. "These inspection photos are time-stamped, but the format is inconsistent." Graham looked at the papers. Some photos showed his site with glaring safety issues, missing railings, improper bracing, but he knew they weren't real. His site didn't look like that. Naomi cleared her throat and returned to the bench. The room fell silent as she spoke. "The evidence packet appears altered," she announced clearly. "This hearing is continued pending an independent review." Murmurs filled the room. Graham stood frozen in place. Naomi had just saved him, at least for now. "We will reschedule once the evidence has been properly authenticated," she continued. "This hearing is adjourned." With a tap of her gavel, it was over. Naomi gathered her papers and stood. Before leaving the bench, she looked at Graham for just a moment, a look he couldn't quite read. People began filing out of the room. Ethan grabbed Graham's arm. "What just happened?" he whispered. Graham shook his head, still stunned. "I don't know." They walked into the corridor where people were already whispering. Graham tried to ignore them as he headed for the exit. Just before he reached the doors, Naomi appeared from a side hallway. She walked toward him with purpose, her robe gone now, wearing a simple navy dress. Her face was a careful mask, but her eyes held something softer. "Mr. Wilder," she said formally, stopping a few feet away. "A word?" Ethan stepped back, giving them space. Naomi lowered her voice. "Be careful who you trust, Graham." Before he could respond, she walked away, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Graham watched her go, 1,000 questions racing through his mind. Why had she helped him? What did she mean about trust? And why, after 3 years, did seeing her still feel like coming home? Outside on the municipal hall steps, Graham took a deep breath of salty sea air. The coastal town spread out before him, shops, cafes, and beyond them, the sparkling blue water that had drawn both him and Naomi here years ago. "We need to figure out what's happening," Ethan said, joining him. "Someone doctored those photos." Graham nodded. "Let's go to Marisol's. I need coffee." They walked the 2 blocks to Marisol's cafe, a cozy spot with big windows facing the ocean. The smell of fresh coffee and baked goods greeted them as they pushed open the door. Marisol Vega looked up from behind the counter, her friendly smile dropping when she saw Graham. "Well, look who it is," she said, crossing her arms. As Naomi's best friend, Marisol had taken sides after the divorce. "What can I get you?" "2 coffees, please," Graham said politely. "Black for me, cream and sugar for Ethan." While Marisol prepared their order, Graham grabbed a table by the window. From here he could see Municipal Hall in the distance. "What are we going to do?" Ethan asked, sitting across from him. "First, we need to figure out who's trying to shut us down," Graham said. "Someone doctored those photos, and I want to know who." The bell over the door chimed, and Graham looked up. His heart jumped when Naomi walked in. She froze when she saw him, clearly not expecting him to be there. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Marisol rushed over to Naomi, wrapping her in a hug. "Hey, girl." "Rough morning?" Naomi nodded, looking tired. "The roughest." Marisol led her to a table on the opposite side of the cafe, shooting Graham a warning look. She brought Naomi a steaming mug of tea and sat down with her. Through the gentle buzz of the cafe, Graham could just make out their conversation. "Was it as bad as you thought?" Marisol asked. Naomi sighed. "Worse. Of all the cases to land on my desk." She wrapped her hands around the mug. "I had to continue it. The evidence was clearly tampered with. How could you tell?" "The timestamp style." Naomi took a sip of tea. "It matched a vendor issue I flagged years ago when I worked for the city attorney. Same quirk in the formatting." Graham tried not to stare, but he couldn't help watching her. She looked different now, more confident, more self-assured. The shy law student he'd fallen for had become this powerful woman who commanded respect. He remembered how they'd met, right here in this cafe. He'd spilled coffee on her law books and spent 20 minutes helping her dry the pages. They'd talked until closing time. 6 months later they were married, and 2 years after that she was gone. Graham forced his attention back to Ethan. "We need to check our server logs. See if anyone accessed our files." "I'll get on it," Ethan said, finishing his coffee. Naomi stood to leave, her eyes briefly meeting Graham's through the window. She quickly looked away and walked out. Graham watched her go, feeling a familiar ache in his chest. Back at his office, Graham paced while Ethan searched through their server logs. "Got something," Ethan said finally, turning his laptop screen. "Look at this. Someone logged into our system at 3:02 a.m. on Tuesday, using your credentials." "That's impossible," Graham said, leaning closer. "I was on a red-eye flight then. Check my itinerary." Ethan pulled up Graham's calendar. "You're right. You were somewhere over Denver at 3 a.m. "So someone has my login information," Graham said. "Who?" His phone rang. Vivian's name flashing on the screen. He answered on speaker. "Graham, what happened?" "I'm hearing all kinds of rumors," Vivian said without greeting. "The hearing's been continued," Graham explained. "Someone altered evidence against us." "This is a PR nightmare," Vivian said. "We need to get ahead of this. Make a statement about a witch hunt. Question the magistrate's motives." "No," Graham said firmly. "No attacks. Especially not against Naomi." There was a pause. "Naomi? Your ex-wife was the magistrate? Are you kidding me?" "She's the one who caught the altered evidence," Graham said. "She could have ruled against me, but she didn't." "This is even better," Vivian pressed. "We can use the connection—" "We're not using anything," Graham cut her off. "No spin, no statements. We find the truth." He hung up before she could argue. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Your sister never changes, does she?" "Nope," Graham sighed. "But I have. At least I'm trying to." That evening, Naomi sat at her kitchen table, a blank form in front of her. The notice of potential recusal heading stared back at her. She should fill it out. Step away from Graham's case completely. It was the safe choice. But something didn't add up. The tampered evidence, the server login. Someone was targeting Graham, and for some reason, that bothered her more than it should. Naomi stood and walked to her bedroom. On the dresser sat a framed photo she'd never put away. Her and Graham on their wedding day, laughing as they fed each other cake. His blue eyes crinkled at the corners. Her white dress contrasted with her dark skin. They looked so happy, so young, so naive. She remembered how it fell apart, the missed dinners as his business grew, the way he began to care more about his image than their relationship. The morning she realized she was becoming a prop in his perfect life picture rather than a partner. The day she left, he'd looked shocked, as if he couldn't understand why his wife would walk away from their beautiful house and comfortable life. Naomi sighed and returned to the kitchen. She left the recusal form on the table, unsigned. Her phone buzzed with a text from Judge Harold Benton, her mentor. "Need to talk." The bench by the annex. 30 minutes. The courthouse annex was quiet at night. Only a few windows glowed with light from late working staff. Naomi found Judge Benton sitting on a wooden bench, looking out at the darkened gardens. At 58, Benton had been her teacher, then her boss, and now her colleague. His salt-and-pepper hair and kind eyes gave him a trustworthy appearance that served him well on the bench. "Naomi," he greeted her, patting the bench beside him. "Quite a day, I hear." She sat down with a sigh. "You could say that. Your ex-husband's case. It wasn't a question." News traveled fast in their circles. "Yes, I continued the hearing. The evidence was clearly altered." Benton nodded slowly. "You have two choices here. Recuse yourself completely or stay and handle it perfectly. Either way, there will be talk. What would you do? If you recuse, do it clean. If you stay, do it cleaner," he said. "I trust your judgment, Naomi, but be careful of the optics." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. "How are you feeling?" Benton asked finally. Seeing him again must have been a shock. Naomi looked down at her hands. "I'm fine." Benton said, clearly not believing her. "Just remember who you are now, not who you were with him." After saying goodnight to Benton, Naomi walked home along the boardwalk. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and the distant sound of waves. It was a perfect spring night. She couldn't help remembering other walks along this same boardwalk, with Graham's arm around her, planning their future. They talked about having children, about growing old in this seaside town. Naomi remembered Sunday mornings in their little kitchen, Graham attempting to make pancakes and burning every single one. They'd ended up laughing so hard they couldn't breathe, eating cereal instead. Those moments had been real. The love had been real, but so was the pain when it ended. Back home, Naomi placed the unsigned recusal form on her nightstand. Tomorrow she'd make her decision. For tonight, she turned out the light and tried not to dream of blue eyes and broken promises. The next morning, Naomi arrived at Municipal Hall early. She needed to handle this case perfectly, beyond reproach. In her chambers, she wrote a brief order. An independent technical review of evidence is hereby ordered, in case CC 2025-428. Due to questions regarding document integrity, all evidence will be reviewed by the county's forensic IT department. She would keep the case only until this review was complete. Then she would step back. As she left her chambers to file the order, her phone buzzed with a text from Graham. Thank you for yesterday. I owe you an explanation." She didn't reply. Outside on the municipal hall steps, she spotted Graham across the plaza. Their eyes met briefly. They both nodded, a simple acknowledgement before walking in opposite directions. It was a start. A very small one. Graham texted Ethan as he walked back to his office. No spin. Fine truth. The words felt right. For too long, he'd let Vivian handle problems with fancy words and careful image management. This time would be different. Graham thought about Naomi's words in the corridor. Be careful who you trust. Who had access to his files? His passwords? His projects? The list was short, and he didn't like where it pointed. As he reached his office, Graham paused and looked back at Municipal Hall in the distance. Somewhere in that building, Naomi was doing her job, being fair, being honest, even to the man who had broken her heart. Graham made a silent promise to himself, to her, to whatever force had brought them back into each other's lives. This time, he would be worthy of that fairness. This time he would choose truth over image, no matter what it cost. Later that same day, Naomi sat at her desk reviewing the order she'd just filed. The independent tech review would start tomorrow. That would be her last official act on Graham's case before stepping back. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marisol. "Lighthouse mixer tonight." "You're coming. No excuses," Naomi sighed. The monthly Lighthouse Mixer was a small community event she usually enjoyed. Local business owners and city officials gathered for light refreshments and conversation in the historic lighthouse that stood at the edge of town. But tonight she just wanted to stay home. "I don't think so," she texted back. Marisol's response was immediate. "Yes, wear the blue dress." "I'll pick you up at 6. There was no arguing with Marisol when she used that tone. Naomi set her phone down and tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting to Graham. Seeing him again had stirred up feelings she thought she'd buried long ago. At 6 o'clock sharp, Marisol knocked on Naomi's door. She looked Naomi up and down, nodding approval at the simple blue dress she'd chosen. "Much better than sweatpants and ice cream," Marisol said. "I wasn't going to—" Naomi started. "Yes, you were." Marisol linked her arm through Naomi's. "Come on. Fresh air and actual human interaction will do you good." The lighthouse stood on a rocky point overlooking the sea. Built in 1896, it had been converted into a small museum and event space. Its white tower glowed in the early evening light as Naomi and Marisol walked up the path. Inside, about 20 people mingled in the circular main room. Soft music played, and windows offered a stunning view of the sunset over the water. Naomi grabbed a glass of sparkling water and tried to relax. "Judge Benton is waving you over." Marisol nudged her. Naomi started to walk toward her mentor when the door opened. Graham walked in with Ethan beside him. Her heart skipped. Graham wore a light blue button-down shirt that made his eyes seem even brighter. He paused when he saw her, then nodded politely. Naomi spent the next half hour chatting with Benton and a few other colleagues, always aware of exactly where Graham was in the room. She could feel his eyes on her occasionally, but didn't look his way. "Excuse me," she finally said to Benton. "I need some air." She slipped out a side door onto the small balcony that wrapped around the lighthouse. The cool sea breeze was a relief after the warmth inside. Naomi leaned against the railing, watching the waves sparkle in the fading light. Beautiful evening. She didn't need to turn to know it was Graham. His voice still sent a small shiver through her. "Yes, it is," she replied, not looking at him. Graham moved to stand beside her, careful to leave space between them. For a moment they just watched the sea in silence. "I wanted to thank you," he said finally, "for yesterday. You could have let those fake documents sink me." "I was doing my job," Naomi said. "The evidence was clearly tampered with. Still, thank you." Another silence fell, this one more comfortable. "So," Graham said, "Special Magistrate. That's impressive." Naomi allowed herself a small smile. "It's just part-time. I still practice law the rest of the week. Your own firm now." "Yes, small but growing," Graham nodded. "I always knew you'd do great things." She finally turned to look at him. His face was softer than she remembered, less guarded. The ambition that had always burned in his eyes was still there, but tempered with something new. Humility, maybe. "What about you?" she asked. "Still focused on changing the skyline?" "On a smaller scale now," he said. "Quality over quantity. Fewer projects but more meaningful ones. Like Harborview?" It's going to be my best work, he said, enthusiasm lighting his face. Affordable housing with actual style. Real community spaces. If someone's trying to shut it down. He stopped, seeming to remember who he was talking to. Sorry, that's not your problem. No, she agreed. It's not, but part of her wished it could be. The passion in his voice reminded her of the young dreamer she'd fallen for years ago. Naomi, he said quietly, what happened to us? The question hung in the air between them. So many possible answers, none of them simple. Before she could respond, Marisol appeared at the door. There you are. Judge Benton's looking for you. Naomi nodded, relieved and disappointed at the same time. I should go. As she turned to leave, Graham spoke quickly. Would you? Could we maybe talk sometime? Just talk. She hesitated, then said, Marisol's Cafe, tomorrow morning before they open. 7:30? He asked. I'll be there. As she walked away, Naomi couldn't help wondering if she was making a mistake. But for the first time in years, she felt something like hope. The next morning, Naomi arrived at the cafe at exactly 7:30. Marisol was already inside. Setting up for the day, you sure about this? Marisol asked as she unlocked the door. Her protective tone made Naomi smile. Not at all, Naomi admitted. But I need to hear what he has to say. Marisol pointed to a table in the back corner. I'll be right here if you need me. One wrong move and I'll pour coffee in his lap. That won't be necessary, Naomi laughed. But thank you. A few minutes later, Graham arrived. He looked nervous as he spotted her at the back table. Marisol gave him a hard stare as he passed the counter. Good morning, he said, sitting across from Naomi. Morning, she replied. Marisol brought 2 cups of coffee without being asked, then retreated to the counter, still watching them like a hawk. Your bodyguard seems ready for action, Graham said with a small smile. She cares, Naomi said simply. Graham nodded, then took a deep breath. I need to apologize. For what? Naomi asked, though she knew the answer. Everything. His blue eyes met hers. For not seeing what was happening to us. For caring more about how things looked than how they felt. For letting you slip away. Naomi wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I didn't slip away, Graham. I walked away. There's a difference. I know that now, he said. It took losing you to understand what mattered. Outside the window, early morning sun sparkled on the sea. The town was just waking up. Shopkeepers opening doors, joggers passing by on the boardwalk. Why are we here, Graham? She asked. What do you want from this conversation? He seemed to choose his words carefully. I want to set some boundaries. Ground rules. If we're going to be in each other's lives again, even just professionally, I want to do it right. This surprised her. The old Graham never talked about boundaries. What kind of ground rules? She asked. No leaks to the press. No assumptions. If one of us hears something about the other, we talk first before reacting. He leaned forward slightly. And no using our past against each other. Naomi considered this. Those seem reasonable. Your turn, he said. She thought for a moment. Complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. No spin, no PR moves. Graham nodded. Agreed. And this stays professional, she added. I'm still recusing myself from any future matters involving your company after this initial ruling. Of course, he said, though something like disappointment flickered in his eyes. They talked for nearly an hour, catching up on the past 3 years. Naomi told him about starting her own practice. Graham shared stories about his recent projects. It felt strangely comfortable, like putting on an old favorite sweater. At 8:15, Marisol flipped the sign on the door to open, and they knew it was time to go. Thank you for this, Graham said as they stood to leave. It was good to talk, Naomi admitted. As they walked to the door, Graham's phone buzzed. He checked it quickly, his expression changing. Everything okay? Naomi asked. Ethan found something, he said, about who might have accessed my account. Outside. They paused on the sidewalk. I should go, Graham said, clearly distracted by whatever Ethan had found. Of course. Naomi tried not to feel disappointed. Good luck. She watched him hurry away, wondering what Ethan had discovered, and why it made her feel uneasy. Graham reached his office in record time. Ethan was waiting at his computer, looking troubled. Show me, Graham said, dropping into a chair beside him. Ethan pulled up a series of log files. I've been tracking all access to our servers. Look at this pattern. The screen showed login data spanning several months. Your credentials were used from different devices, Ethan explained. Your computer, your phone, but also this third device here. He pointed to a line of code. And guess who uses that device? Who? Graham asked, though he already suspected the answer. Vivian's assistant, Tyler. He sometimes uses shared devices with cached admin sessions. And look at the timing. Ethan scrolled down. 3 months ago, Vivian asked for your login to check some files while you were on that London trip. After that, Tyler's device shows access every few weeks. Graham felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. You think Vivian is behind this? Or Tyler acting on his own, Ethan said. Either way, the trail leads there. Graham stood up, anger rising. I need to talk to my sister. Whoa, slow down, Ethan said. We need more proof before making accusations. Let's be smart about this. Graham paced the office. If Vivian's involved in this, big if, Ethan cautioned. Let me dig deeper. Get concrete proof. Reluctantly, Graham agreed. Fine, but I want answers today. While Ethan worked, Graham checked his email. A notification from the city clerk showed that Naomi had formally requested the tech review. The wording was perfect, neutral, professional, focused only on the evidence. She was handling this exactly as she'd promised. By midday, Graham needed fresh air. He texted Naomi, Can we talk? Just for a few minutes. Her reply came quickly, Seaside Bench. 20 minutes. The seaside bench was halfway between Municipal Hall and Graham's office. It faced the ocean, giving a sense of privacy despite being in a public place. Naomi was already there when Graham arrived. What's wrong? She asked as he sat down. Graham told her about the credential trail and his suspicions about Vivian or her assistant. You think your own sister would sabotage you? Naomi asked carefully. I don't know what to think, Graham admitted. Vivian's always been obsessed with controlling our company's image. But this seems extreme even for her. Naomi was quiet for a moment. What will you do if it's true? Confront her, Graham said without hesitation. Today. Maybe you should wait, Naomi suggested. Get more information first. Have a private, honest family conversation. Graham felt a flash of irritation. My family wouldn't sabotage me. Are you sure? Naomi asked gently. Because someone with inside access did. I'm not afraid of the truth, Graham said defensively. Naomi looked at him steadily. Love tells the truth, Graham. Especially when it costs. The words hit him hard. Hadn't that been their problem? His unwillingness to face hard truths when they were married? I need to get back to Chambers, Naomi said, standing up. The tech review team has some questions. Of course, Graham said, still distracted by her words. As she walked away, he called after her. Naomi, thank you. For listening. She nodded, a small smile touching her lips before she turned and headed back toward Municipal Hall. After their talk, Graham headed to his construction site to clear his head. The Harborview project was his dream build. Stylish, affordable housing that would help working families stay in town despite rising costs. The half-finished building stood tall against the sky, workers moving around like busy ants. Boss, the site foreman waved him over. Thought you were at the office today. Needed some fresh air, Graham explained. How are we looking? Good considering the delay. The foreman pointed to various areas. Framing's done on the east wing. Plumbing's going in tomorrow, assuming we get clearance to restart. Graham nodded, pride swelling as he looked at his creation. This would be his legacy. Not just another fancy condo for the wealthy, but homes real people could afford. If someone was trying to stop it, he needed to know why. As he walked toward the supply yard, Graham noticed something strange. The gate to the materials area was wide open, though it should have been locked. He stepped through to check what was happening. Inside, stacks of lumber and pallets of bricks lined the walls. A worker on a forklift was moving supplies, not paying attention to his surroundings. Hey, Graham called out. The gate should be closed. The worker looked up, startled. As he turned, the forklift bumped a stack of lumber. The pile shifted dangerously. Graham didn't see it starting to fall. But someone else did. Graham, move. Naomi's voice cut through the air as she grabbed his arm and yanked him back. The lumber crashed down exactly where he had been standing. Heart pounding, Graham turned to find Naomi beside him, her eyes wide with fear. Are you okay? She asked, breathless. Yes, thanks to you. He stared at her in confusion. What are you doing here? She stepped back, straightening her jacket. I came to drop off a request form for the review team. They need access to inspect the site. The forklift driver rushed over, apologizing profusely. Graham assured him it was fine, then turned back to Naomi. "You saved me," he said softly. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, relief, something more. For a moment, the careful walls between them crumbled. Without thinking, Graham reached for her hand. "Naomi, I don't," she whispered, though she didn't pull away. "We can't." But her eyes said something different. They stood frozen, hands touching, hearts racing. Finally, Naomi broke the spell. "I should go. Have dinner with me," Graham said quickly. "Tonight?" "Just to talk," she hesitated. "Graham, please." "After hours at Marisol's. No press, no public. Just us." After what seemed like forever, she nodded. 8 o'clock. That evening, Marisol closed the cafe early, giving Graham and Naomi privacy. She left a simple meal of soup and bread for them, along with strict instructions. "Don't make me regret this, Wilder." Naomi arrived wearing jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Graham had never seen anything more beautiful. "This is nice," she said, looking around at the cafe lit only by candles. "Marisol has a flair for setting a mood," Graham smiled. They sat across from each other at a small table by the window. Outside, stars sparkled above the dark water. "Thank you for coming," Graham said. "Thank you for almost getting crushed by lumber so we could have this moment," Naomi replied with a small smile. They laughed, and some of the tension melted away. They ate their soup and talked about safe topics, mutual friends, changes in the town, books they'd read recently. But eventually, the conversation turned to what they both knew they needed to discuss. "Why did you leave, Naomi?" Graham asked softly. "Really?" She set down her spoon and looked at him directly. "I left because I refused to become your prop." The words stung, but Graham knew they were true. "Your business was growing. You were becoming someone important in town," Naomi continued, "and I started to feel like an accessory. The perfect wife on your arm at events. The right look for your brand." She paused. "But when we were alone, you weren't really there anymore." Graham looked down at his hands. "I thought I was building our future." "You were building your future," she corrected. "I just happened to be in it." "I'm sorry," he said, meeting her eyes. "I was so focused on success that I forgot what really mattered." "And what's that?" she asked. "You," he said simply. "Us being real with each other, not perfect for everyone else." Naomi's eyes softened. "What changed, Graham?" "I did," he said. "After you left, I realized what I'd lost. Not just a wife, but my best friend. The person who saw me, really saw me." He reached across the table. "I'm not that man anymore. No more spin. No more caring what others think more than what's true." Slowly, hesitantly, Naomi placed her hand in his. "I want to believe that." "Then believe it," he whispered. "Give me a chance to show you." Their fingers intertwined across the table. Something long buried began to bloom again between them. Trust, hope, possibility. "We'll take it slow," Naomi said. "One day at a time." "One day at a time," Graham agreed, his heart lighter than it had been in years. They finished their meal, talking about everything and nothing, comfortable in a way they hadn't been with anyone else since their split. When it was time to leave, Graham walked Naomi to her car. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "Can I see you tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes," she smiled. "I'd like that." Graham watched her drive away, feeling like a teenager after a perfect first date. He took out his phone to text Ethan the good news, but found a message waiting. "Emergency. The vendor watermark on those documents matches our old subcontractor, Davis Construction. And he was at the mixer last night. Call me ASAP." Graham's happiness dimmed slightly. The mystery wasn't solved yet. But for the first time, he felt like whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. The next morning, Graham woke early. Unable to sleep, he walked to the boardwalk to watch the sunrise. The sky turned from black to deep purple, then exploded in shades of pink and orange. Without thinking, he took a photo and texted it to Naomi, then immediately regretted it. Was it too much, too soon? A minute later, his phone buzzed. Naomi had sent back a simple heart emoji, then quickly deleted it and replaced it with beautiful. Coffee later? Graham typed back 2 hearts, then deleted them as well. Definitely. After your morning hearings? Perfect, she replied. He smiled, tucking the phone away. Things were moving in the right direction. Back at his office, Ethan was already waiting with a full report. The vendor watermark and login timing point to internal credentials being misused, he explained. And get this, Marisol mentioned that the vendor, Mike Davis, was acting weird at the mixer. Avoided eye contact with Naomi completely. So Davis might be involved, Graham mused. But he'd need inside help. Exactly, Ethan said grimly. And all roads still lead to your sister's office. Graham's phone buzzed with a news alert. His blood ran cold as he read the headline, Special Treatment? Magistrate's ex gets case continued. Below it was a photo from the lighthouse mixer, Graham and Naomi talking closely on the balcony. Damn it, Graham whispered. Who would do this? His phone rang. Naomi, have you seen it? She asked, her voice tight. Just now, he said. Naomi, I swear I had nothing to do with this. I know, she said. But Judge Benton is adding oversight to all my cases now, and Her voice faltered. I can't see you today. Not with this going around. Graham's heart sank. I understand. I'm filing my formal recusal for any future matters involving your company, she said. I'll still issue the ruling on the tainted evidence, but after that, I'm stepping back completely. Of course, Graham said, trying to hide his disappointment. You have to protect your reputation. There was a pause. Graham, was last night a mistake? No, he said firmly. Absolutely not. Another pause. I have to go. Benton's waiting. After they hung up, Graham stared out his office window. Just when things were starting to heal between them, someone had thrown this wrench into their fragile new beginning. His phone buzzed again, Vivian calling. Graham let it go to voicemail. He needed to think. Across town, Naomi sat alone in her home office, signing the formal recusal for any future Wilder matters. Her hand shook slightly as she wrote her name, one dinner, one evening of honesty and connection, and now this. She thought of Graham's face in the candlelight, his hand holding hers across the table. For a few hours, she'd let herself believe. They might have a second chance. Now she wasn't so sure, a tear she refused. To let fall blurred her vision as she signed the last document. Morning sunlight streamed through Naomi's office window as she sealed the envelope containing her recusal. For any future matters involving Wilder development, another magistrate would take over. But she would still handle this one last part, the ruling on the tainted evidence packet. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the article appeared. Friends asking if she was okay, colleagues offering support, Judge Benton checking in every hour. She ignored them all, focusing on doing her job perfectly. No one could say she hadn't been professional. No one could claim she'd shown favoritism. Her ruling would be clean, fair, and beyond criticism, but her heart felt heavy. Just when she and Graham had started to rebuild something, this smear appeared. Someone wanted to hurt them both. Across town, Graham sat in his office staring at his computer screen. His PR team had sent over 3 different draft statements, all suggesting ways to control the narrative and shift focus from the allegations. He deleted them all. Instead, he wrote a simple note. I trust the municipal process and have no further comment at this time. His phone rang again, Vivian for the 5th time. He let it go to voicemail. You should talk to her, Ethan said from the doorway. Not until I calm down, Graham replied. If she's involved in this, we need proof before making accusations, Ethan reminded him. I've scheduled a meeting with her for this afternoon. Just you, me, and her. No lawyers, no assistants, Graham nodded. At her place. No public setting. Agreed. Graham turned back to his window, watching seagulls circle above the harbor. I messed up once with Naomi, he said quietly. I'm not making the same mistake again. No spin, no image management. Just the truth, whatever it costs. Ethan put a hand on his shoulder. That's growth, my friend. At Municipal Hall, Naomi filed her recusal paperwork with the clerk, who gave her a sympathetic smile. Don't let them get to you. Judge Ellis, the clerk said quietly. They won't, Naomi assured her, though the words felt hollow. Walking back to her chambers, Naomi passed the courthouse break room. Conversations stopped when she entered. Colleagues smiled too brightly, trying to act normal. She filled her water bottle and left quickly. Back in her office, she closed the door and leaned against it, eyes shut. This was exactly why she'd left Graham 3 years ago. His world was always about appearance, image, what people thought. She'd escaped that goldfish bowl only to find herself swimming in it again. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marisol. Lunch, my place upstairs. No arguments. 30 minutes later, Naomi sat at Marisol's kitchen table above the cafe. The cozy apartment smelled like the fresh bread always baking downstairs. Eat, Marisol ordered, placing a sandwich in front of her. I'm not hungry, Naomi protested. Don't care. Marisol sat across from her. You need food and a friend who isn't going to tiptoe around what's happening. Naomi smiled despite herself. And that's you? You know it. Marisol took a bite of her own sandwich. So you and Graham were getting close again? It wasn't a question, but Naomi answered anyway. We were talking. That's all. Marisol clearly didn't believe her. And now? Now I'm doing my job and staying away from him, Naomi said firmly. Until this dies down. And if it doesn't? Naomi looked out the window toward the sea. Then that's my answer, isn't it? Maybe some things aren't meant for a second chance. Marisol shook her head. Girl, I watched you two at dinner. That wasn't nothing. It doesn't matter, Naomi said. My career, my reputation, I've worked too hard to throw it all away. Is that what you'd be doing? Marisol asked gently. Or would you just be choosing happiness over fear? Naomi had no answer for that. At 3 o'clock, Graham and Ethan stood on the doorstep of Vivian's townhouse. The elegant home overlooking the bay matched Vivian's expensive taste. Graham took a deep breath before ringing the bell. His relationship with his half-sister had always been complicated. 8 years older than him, Vivian had alternated between ignoring him and trying to control him their entire lives. When he started his company, she'd insisted on handling all public relations, claiming no one else could be trusted. Maybe she'd been right about that last part. Vivian opened the door, looking perfectly put together as always. Her blonde hair was styled in a sleek bob, her navy dress crisp and professional. Finally, she said, stepping back to let them in. I've been calling all day. We need to talk, Graham said, walking past her into the living room. About this ridiculous article? I'm already on it, Vivian said, closing the door. I've called my contacts at 3 different outlets to run counterpieces suggesting, not about the article, Graham interrupted. About this. Ethan opened his laptop on the coffee table. The screen showed the login records they'd discovered, the pattern of access from Vivian's office to Graham's secure files. Vivian stared at the screen, then at Graham. What is this? Someone accessed my company files using my credentials, Graham explained, watching her carefully. The logins came from a device registered to your assistant, Tyler. That's ridiculous, Vivian said, but her face had paled slightly. The evidence against my project was doctored, Graham continued. Whoever did it used a vendor watermark from Davis Construction, a company you hired for our media shoots last year. You think I'm sabotaging you? Vivian's voice rose. My own brother. I don't know what to think, Graham said honestly. But the trail leads to your office? Vivian sank onto the couch, her perfect composure cracking. I didn't doctor any evidence, but you had access to my login, Graham pressed. Did you share it? With Tyler? With anyone else? For a long moment, Vivian just stared at the floor. When she looked up, something in her eyes had changed. I did it, she whispered. I thought I was saving us. Graham felt like he'd been punched. Even expecting it, hearing the confession hurt. Explain, he said, his voice tight. Not the evidence, Vivian clarified quickly. I didn't tamper with anything. But I did. Monitor your accounts. She looked away. I had Tyler check your emails, your files, your calendar. Just to make sure everything was running smoothly. You were spying on me, Graham said flatly. I was protecting the brand, she insisted. Our family name, our reputation, by giving my password to your assistant? Graham's voice rose. Do you have any idea what you've done? Ethan stepped in. Vivian, we need to know exactly who had access to Graham's credentials. Vivian sighed deeply. Just Tyler. I told him to keep an eye on things, flag any potential problems. And Davis Construction? Ethan asked. We used them for a photo shoot last fall. Tyler might have shared files with them for the promotional materials. Graham paced the room, trying to control his anger. So either Tyler or someone at Davis used my login to plant fake evidence against my project? I never told him to do that, Vivian said quickly. Never, but you created the opportunity, Graham said, by monitoring me behind my back. Vivian stood up, her eyes flashing. Someone had to. You've been distracted, making emotional decisions. The Harborview project isn't even profitable. It's not supposed to be wildly profitable, Graham shot back. It's supposed to help people. Help people. Vivian laughed bitterly. Since when is that our family motto? Graham stared at his sister. suddenly seeing their relationship clearly for the first time. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it should be. Ethan cleared his throat. We need a plan. Vivian, we need a written affidavit about the access you gave Tyler, and you need to dismiss him today. And notify Davis that we're investigating, Graham added. Vivian looked like she might argue, then her shoulders sagged. Fine. And one more thing, Graham said. No more PR management on this. No spin, no planting stories. The truth comes out whatever it costs us. You can't be serious, Vivian protested. Graham, your reputation isn't worth sacrificing my integrity, he finished. Not again. As they left Vivian's house, Graham felt both drained and relieved. The betrayal hurt, but at least now they knew where to look. What now? Ethan asked as they walked to the car. Now we fix this, Graham said. Starting with Naomi. Back in her chambers, Naomi focused on writing her ruling. The independent tech review had confirmed what she already knew. The evidence packet had been tampered with. Now she needed to formalize her decision. She chose her words carefully, making sure the language was clear and neutral. Upon review by independent forensic experts, the evidence packet submitted in case CC 2025-428 has been determined to contain altered documents. Therefore, the enforcement action based on this evidence is hereby voided without prejudice. The technical review will continue to determine the source of the alterations. As previously filed, this magistrate recuses herself from all future matters involving Wilder development. No drama, no opinions, just facts. When she finished, Naomi set down her pen and exhaled slowly. It was done. Clean, fair, and professional. No one could claim she had shown favoritism or bias. She reached for her phone, wanting to tell Graham, but stopped herself. Better to let the ruling speak for itself. Better to keep her distance until the talk died down, but it hurt, pulling back just when they'd started to reconnect. Her phone buzzed with a text from Judge Benton. Well done. Ruling is perfect. This will pass. She appreciated his support but couldn't help wondering, would it pass? Or would this shadow follow her career for years? The magistrate who favored her ex-husband, more importantly, could what she and Graham had started survive this interruption? Or would they retreat to their separate corners, deciding the risk wasn't worth it? Naomi placed the ruling in her outbox for filing in the morning. Tomorrow, her involvement in Graham's case would officially end. What happened after that was out of her hands. That evening, Graham sat in his home office, staring at a blank document on his screen. He'd been trying to write a statement for hours, but nothing felt right. Most public relations experts would advise him to stay quiet, let his lawyers handle everything. But Graham was tired of hiding behind carefully crafted words. Tired of image over substance. Finally, he began to type. My name is Graham Wilder. I'm responsible for the security of my company's systems and data. Recently, those systems were compromised, leading to falsified evidence being presented against one of our projects. While I was not personally involved in creating this false evidence, I take full responsibility for the credential mismanagement that made it possible. I ask that the focus remain on finding the truth, not on attacking the character of Special Magistrate Ellis, who acted with complete professionalism throughout this process. Her recusal from future matters involving my company is appropriate and respected. I am cooperating fully with all investigations and will accept whatever consequences are determined to be fair. He read it over twice, then saved it without editing. No spin, no deflection, just the truth. Graham recorded a short video reading the statement and sent it to the tech review team along with a written copy for the clerk's office. He was careful not to release it to the media. This wasn't about public opinion, but about doing the right thing. When that was done, he picked up his phone and texted Naomi, I'm sorry. Not for the case. For the years I made you feel second. He didn't expect a reply right away, or maybe ever. But 10 minutes later, his phone buzzed. Instead of words, Naomi had sent a location pin. The lighthouse steps tomorrow at sunset. Graham's heart lifted. Maybe they weren't finished after all. The next day crawled by in agonizing slowness. Graham kept checking his watch, willing the hours to pass faster. When sunset finally approached, he drove to the lighthouse, deliberately arriving a few minutes early. The historic structure glowed golden in the late afternoon light, its beam just beginning to shine as darkness crept in from the east. The stone steps at the base of the lighthouse offered a perfect view of the sea. Graham sat down, watching waves roll gently onto the shore. The air smelled of salt and pine. A few minutes later, he heard footsteps on the gravel path. Turning, he saw Naomi walking toward him. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair moving softly in the breeze. Even in casual clothes, she took his breath away. Graham stood as she approached. "Thank you for coming." Naomi sat on the step beside him, leaving a small space between them. "I filed my ruling this morning. I know. It was perfect." They watched the sea in silence for a moment. "Vivian confessed," Graham said finally. "She gave her assistant access to my accounts. She wasn't trying to sabotage me, just control everything, and the assistant, working with the theory that he shared access with Davis Construction. We're still investigating." Naomi nodded, looking out at the horizon where pink and orange streaked the sky. "I'm sorry it was your family." "Me too," Graham said. "But it's good to know the truth. Finally." Another silence fell, more comfortable this time. "I saw your statement," Naomi said. "The one you sent to the clerk." "No spin," Graham said with a small smile. "Just like I promised. It was brave. It was right," he corrected. "I'm tired of hiding behind carefully chosen words. Tired of managing perceptions instead of just living truthfully." Naomi turned to look at him fully. "That doesn't sound like the Graham Wilder I used to know." "I'm not him anymore," Graham said. "When you left, it broke something in me. Made me look at myself, really look. I didn't like what I saw." He took a deep breath. "I was so focused on building this perfect life, this perfect image, that I lost sight of what actually makes life worth living." "And what's that?" Naomi asked softly. "Love, real connection. Honesty even when it's uncomfortable." He met her eyes. "You," Naomi looked down at her hands. "Graham, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I just need you to know I'm sorry. Not just for now, but for then. For making you feel like an accessory instead of a partner. For choosing image over intimacy. For not fighting for you when you left." She was quiet for a long moment. "The article hurt," she finally said. "Seeing our private moment turned into something ugly. It brought back all those old feelings, like I was just part of your public relations strategy." "I know," Graham said. "And I swear I had nothing to do with it." "I believe you," Naomi said. "But it still reopened old wounds. What can I do?" he asked. "To prove that I've changed?" Naomi looked out at the darkening sea. "Just be honest. With me, with yourself, with everyone. No more spin. No more perfect image." She turned to him. "Can you do that? Really do it, not just say you will." "Yes," Graham said without hesitation. "I already started." The lighthouse beam swept over them, a moment of brightness in the growing dusk. "So where does that leave us?" Graham asked carefully. Naomi's lips curved into a small smile. "How about coffee tomorrow? Then maybe a walk." "I'd like that," Graham said, hope filling his chest. "No rush, no pressure. Just us figuring things out." "Just us," Naomi agreed. As darkness settled fully over the sea, they sat together on the lighthouse steps, not touching but close. Two people finding their way back to each other, one honest moment at a time. The next morning, Graham arrived at Marisol's cafe with a mix of hope and nervousness. He'd barely slept, replaying his conversation with Naomi over and over. Marisol gave him a surprisingly friendly nod as he entered. "Back corner," she said, jerking her head toward Naomi's usual table. "Thanks," Graham said. "And thank you for being such a good friend to her." Marisol's expression softened slightly. "Just don't mess this up, Wilder. Second chances are rare." "I know," he assured her. As he walked toward Naomi's table, the cafe door opened again. Graham turned to see his sister Vivian standing awkwardly in the entrance, clutching a manila envelope. Vivian spotted him and walked over. "Is she here yet?" she asked quietly. "Why?" Graham asked, instantly protective. "I need to talk to her," Vivian said. "To apologize." Graham studied his sister's face. She looked different today, less polished, more human. Her eyes were slightly red, like she hadn't slept well either. "She's in the back," he said finally. "Be gentle, Viv, she's been through enough." Vivian nodded and walked past him to where Naomi sat. Graham hung back, giving them space but close enough to intervene if needed. "Magistrate Ellis," Vivian said formally, "may I join you for a moment?" Naomi looked up in surprise, then nodded cautiously. "Of course." Vivian sat down, placing the envelope on the table. "I owe you an apology," she began. "A big one. For what?" Naomi asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. For creating the situation that led to this mess. Vivian gestured vaguely. The false evidence, the article, all of it. She pushed the envelope forward. This is a written apology and an affidavit about the access situation. Tyler has been dismissed. I've also... She hesitated. I'm stepping back from Graham's operations. Completely. Naomi opened the envelope and quickly scanned the documents inside. Thank you for your honesty, she said finally. It can't have been easy. Vivian laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Nothing about this has been easy. But it's been necessary. She stood up. I'll let you two talk now. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. As Vivian turned to leave, Naomi spoke again. Choosing truth over image takes courage. Remember that. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. She nodded once and walked quickly out of the cafe. Graham approached the table as Vivian left. You okay? He asked Naomi. Yes, she said, looking thoughtfully at the door. That was unexpected. She's changing too, Graham said, sitting down across from her. Slowly. Marisol appeared with 2 coffees and 2 blueberry muffins. On the house, she said, placing them on the table. She gave Graham a hard look, then winked at Naomi. Don't waste this second chance, you two. After she walked away, Graham and Naomi shared a smile. So, Graham said. Coffee, check. Walk next? I'd like that, Naomi said. They took their time finishing breakfast, talking easily about everything and nothing. The tension of the past few days seemed to have lifted. Something new was growing between them. Something stronger, more honest than before. Ready? Graham asked when they'd finished. Naomi nodded. Let's go. Outside, the morning sun warmed the boardwalk. A few joggers passed by, along with locals walking dogs. The sea sparkled blue and endless. Which way? Graham asked. Does it matter? Naomi smiled. Not at all. They walked slowly, letting their hands brush occasionally, but not quite holding on. There was something sweet about this careful dance, this rediscovery of each other. We should set some ground rules, Naomi said after a while. More boundaries? Graham asked with a small smile. Good ones, she assured him, like weekly check-ins about how we're feeling. No secrets about family or business pressures. And no public appearances for a while, Graham added. No feeding the gossip mill. Exactly. Naomi stopped walking and turned to face him. I want to do this right, Graham. Not fast, not for show. Just real. Real sounds perfect, he said softly. They stood close, the morning light playing across their faces. Slowly, Graham reached for her hand. This time she let him take it. I've missed you, he said simply. I've missed you too, she admitted. A light rain began to fall, soft drops speckling the boardwalk. They stepped under a nearby awning, still holding hands. Naomi, Graham said, his voice tender. I'm not the man I was. And I don't think you're the same woman either. But maybe that's good. Maybe we needed to grow separately before we could grow together. She looked up at him, her brown eyes warm. Maybe we did. Gently, Graham leaned forward and kissed her. Just a soft touch of his lips to hers, a question more than a demand. Naomi answered by kissing him back, her free hand coming up to rest against his chest. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. The simple kiss felt like a new beginning, a promise of something real and lasting. So, Graham said, what happens now? Naomi squeezed his hand. Now we take it one day at a time. Build something honest, something that lasts. As the rain fell gently around them, they sealed their plan with another kiss, this one longer and full of hope for tomorrow. 2 hours after their kiss in the rain, Graham and Naomi strolled along the boardwalk, their shoulders occasionally touching. The rain had stopped, leaving everything fresh and clean. Puddles reflected the blue sky, and the air smelled of salt and wet wood. There's a small art walk happening later today, Graham said. Local artists set up along the boardwalk. Nothing fancy, just neighbors sharing their work. That sounds nice, Naomi said, smiling. I could use something simple and good after this week. Me too. Graham hesitated, then added, Would you want to go? Together? Naomi thought for a moment. What happened to no public appearances? It's not really public, Graham explained. Just locals. No press, no cameras. Just us enjoying an afternoon with neighbors. She considered this. Okay, but if anyone starts staring or whispering, we leave, Graham promised. No drama. They walked a bit farther, stopping at a bench overlooking the water. Sitting close but not quite touching, they watched gulls wheel and dive over the waves. "Tell me something I don't know about you," Naomi said suddenly. Graham looked surprised. "After 3 years of marriage?" "We knew each other, but maybe not as well as we thought," she said. "I want to know the real Graham, not the perfect image." He thought for a moment. "I've been taking cooking classes," he admitted. "Once a week for the past year," Naomi laughed. "You, the man who burned water?" "That's why I needed lessons," Graham smiled. "I was tired of takeout, tired of eating alone." His honesty touched her. "How's it going?" "So I can make 5 dishes now without setting off the smoke alarm," he said proudly. "Progress," she teased, nudging his shoulder with hers. "Your turn," Graham said. "Tell me something I don't know about you." Naomi looked out at the sea. "I almost called you. About 6 months after I left," she turned to meet his eyes. "I had my phone in my hand, your number on the screen. But I couldn't press call." "Why not?" he asked softly. "I was afraid nothing had changed," she said. "That you'd still choose your image over me?" Graham nodded slowly. "I probably would have then. I wasn't ready yet. And now?" "Now I know what matters," he said, taking her hand. "And it's not what other people think." They sat together, hands linked, watching the sea. After a while, Naomi rested her head against his shoulder, and Graham felt a peace he hadn't known in years. Later that afternoon, they met at the start of the boardwalk where the art walk was beginning. Small booths lined the wooden planks, local artists displaying paintings, pottery, jewelry, and handmade crafts. "This is lovely," Naomi said, looking around at the colorful displays. Graham nodded. "I try to come every month. It's nice to support local artists." They strolled from booth to booth, admiring the work. Graham seemed to know many of the artists, greeting them by name and asking about their families. Naomi watched him with growing appreciation. This wasn't networking or image building, just genuine connection with neighbors. At one booth, an elderly woman displayed hand-knitted scarves in vibrant colors. "Judge Ellis," she called warmly. "I've been hoping you'd stop by." "Mrs. Parker," Naomi greeted her. "Your work is beautiful as always." "And who's this handsome young man?" Mrs. Parker asked, eyeing Graham. Naomi hesitated only briefly. "This is Graham Wilder. She looked at him, questioning. "Her date," Graham said simply, extending his hand to Mrs. Parker. The old woman's eyes twinkled. "Well, it's about time someone caught our judge's eye. She works too hard." Naomi felt her cheeks warm, but she was smiling. It felt good, being open about this new beginning. As they continued down the boardwalk, Naomi was surprised to see Ethan chatting with Marisol at a coffee stand. "Well, look at that," Graham murmured. "Interesting." Marisol spotted them and waved. "Hey, you two. Come get some fresh coffee." As they approached, Naomi noticed Ethan's hand resting casually on the counter near Marisol's, not quite touching, but close. "Fancy meeting you here," Graham said, giving Ethan a questioning look. Ethan shrugged, a slight blush on his cheeks. "Marisol makes the best coffee in town. Thought I'd support a local business?" "Mm-hmm," Naomi hummed, exchanging a knowing look with Marisol. "2 coffees?" Marisol asked, already preparing the cups. While she worked, Ethan leaned closer to Graham. "Everything okay at the office?" "All quiet," Graham assured him. "Take the afternoon off." "You've earned it," Ethan grinned. "Thanks, boss." As they walked away with their coffees, Naomi nudged Graham. "So Ethan and Marisol?" "Apparently," Graham chuckled. "Can't say I'm surprised. They're both stubborn, loyal, and protective of the people they care about." "A perfect match," Naomi agreed. They continued down the boardwalk, stopping occasionally to admire artwork or chat with neighbors. To Naomi's relief, no one mentioned the article or the hearing. Here they were just Graham and Naomi, 2 locals enjoying a community event. Near the end of the art walk, Graham stopped at a small booth displaying watercolor paintings. The artist, a young woman with colorful beads in her hair, was painting a tiny card at a makeshift easel. "These are beautiful," Naomi said, admiring the delicate scenes of their coastal town. One small painting caught her eye, the lighthouse at sunset, painted in soft oranges and purples. It captured the peaceful moment they'd shared on the steps yesterday. "That one," Graham said, noticing her interest. He turned to the artist. "We'll take the lighthouse, please." The young woman carefully wrapped the small painting in tissue paper. "It's one of my favorites," she told them. "The lighthouse has seen a lot of history in this town. A lot of storms, but it's still standing." "Like all good relationships," Naomi said softly. Graham paid for the painting and handed the wrapped package to Naomi. "A reminder," he said, "of new beginnings." She took it with a smile, tucking it carefully into her bag. As they neared the end of the boardwalk, Naomi spotted a familiar figure. Judge Benton stood leaning against the railing, watching sailboats on the horizon. "My mentor," she whispered to Graham. "Should we go another way?" Graham shook his head. "No more hiding, remember?" They approached Benton, who turned as they drew near. His eyes widened slightly at seeing them together, but his expression remained kind. "Naomi," he greeted her. "Enjoying the art walk?" "Very much," she replied. "Judge Benton, you remember Graham Wilder?" "Of course." Benton shook Graham's hand firmly. "I read your statement to the clerk's office. Quite forthright." "Thank you, sir," Graham said. "I'm trying to be more direct these days, less managed." Benton nodded approvingly. "A good approach, in court and in life." He looked between them, a knowing smile touching his lips. "Well, I won't keep you. Enjoy the rest of the event." As he walked away, Naomi let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "That was his blessing," she said quietly. "Did we need it?" Graham asked. "No," Naomi smiled, "but it's nice to have it anyway." The sun was beginning to set as they reached the end of the art walk. A street musician played guitar nearby, the gentle music floating on the evening breeze. "Walk you home?" Graham asked. "I'd like that," Naomi replied. They turned onto the street leading to Naomi's small house near the beach. Walking hand in hand now, they fell into comfortable silence, just enjoying each other's presence. "I've been thinking," Graham said after a while, "about what you said at the cafe that night. About feeling like a prop in my perfect life." Naomi squeezed his hand, encouraging him to continue. "I want you to know that I see you," he said earnestly. "Not as an accessory or an image boost. I see you, Naomi. Your strength, your integrity, your kindness. The way you furrow your brow when you're thinking hard. The way you always fight for what's right, even when it costs you." Naomi stopped walking, turning to face him. Where was this Graham 3 years ago? "Learning the hard way," he admitted. "Sometimes you have to lose something precious to understand its value." She reached up, touching his face gently. "So I see you too, Graham. Not the successful developer or the polished businessman. Just you, the man who cares deeply about his community, who's learning to choose truth over appearance, who burns pancakes but keeps trying anyway." Graham laughed softly, leaning into her touch. "We wasted a lot of time, didn't we?" "Maybe," Naomi said. "Or maybe we needed that time apart to become the people who could really love each other. Not just the idea of each other." They continued walking, the watercolor of the lighthouse tucked safely between them. As they neared Naomi's house, a comfortable question hung in the air. What happened next? At her front door, Naomi turned to Graham. "Would you like to come in?" "I could make tea." "I'd like that," he said. Inside, Naomi's small house was warm and inviting. Bookshelves lined the walls, plants sat in sunny windows, and comfortable furniture invited relaxation. It was nothing like the sleek show-home perfection of their old house together. "I like your place," Graham said, looking around. "It feels like you," Naomi smiled. That was the goal. She went to the kitchen to put on the kettle. "Make yourself comfortable." Graham wandered into the living room, noticing framed photos on a side table. One caught his eye. Naomi on her law school graduation day, beaming proudly. Beside it sat their wedding photo, the one he'd glimpsed in her bedroom before. "You kept this," he said quietly when she returned with 2 mugs of tea. Naomi nodded. It was a happy day. "I didn't want to erase it just because things ended badly." "I'm glad," Graham said, taking the mug she offered. They sat together on the couch, closer than they would have just days ago. "So what happens now?" Naomi asked, echoing the question from earlier. Graham took a sip of tea, considering. "We take it slow. Get to know each other again. No pressure, no rush." "I'd like that," she agreed. "Dinner once a week?" "Maybe a movie sometimes." "Perfect," Graham said. "And if people talk, let them," Naomi finished. "We know the truth." They talked late into the evening, sharing stories from their time apart, filling in the blanks of the past 3 years. When Graham finally stood to leave, it was with reluctance. At the door, he took both her hands in his. "Thank you for today, for giving us another chance. "Thank you for becoming someone worth giving that chance to," she replied softly. Their goodnight kiss was gentle, a promise of more to come. As Graham walked to his car, he felt lighter than he had in years. Over the next few weeks, Naomi and Graham settled into a comfortable rhythm. They had dinner together twice a week, once at a quiet restaurant out of town, once at one of their homes. They texted throughout the day, sharing small moments and thoughts. True to their agreement, they kept things private. No big public appearances, no social media posts, just two people reconnecting away from prying eyes. One evening, about a month after the art walk, Graham cooked dinner at his place. He'd spent the afternoon preparing his best dish, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables. "This is actually good," Naomi said with surprise after her first bite. "Those cooking classes paid off," Graham laughed. "Don't sound so shocked." After dinner, they sat on Graham's back deck with glasses of wine, watching the sunset over the sea. His house was smaller than their old place, a modern beach cottage with large windows and simple furnishings. Like Naomi's house, it felt more personal, less like a showpiece. "I have some news," Naomi said, setting down her wine glass. "The tech review is complete." Graham turned to her. "And?" "They traced the altered documents to Tyler's computer. He's admitted everything." She paused. "He claims he was trying to impress Vivian, show her that he could handle problems without involving her." Graham sighed. "Poor kid. Vivian has that effect on people." "He's facing charges," Naomi continued. "But he's cooperating, so the prosecutor will likely go easy on him." "And my project?" "Cleared completely. The stop work order has been lifted." Graham nodded, relief washing over him. "Thank you for telling me." "There's more," Naomi said. "The article. They traced it to a throwaway email account, but the IP address," she hesitated, "was Tyler too." "No," she said softly. "It was Davis Construction. Looks like they were trying to create a distraction when they realized the fake evidence was being questioned." Graham shook his head. "All this because I cancelled their contract after they overcharged us." "Some people take rejection very personally," Naomi said, her eyes meeting his. The deeper meaning of her words hung between them. Graham reached for her hand. "I've been thinking," he said, "about rejection, about second chances." "Oh?" Naomi raised an eyebrow. "3 years ago when you left, I was hurt and angry," Graham admitted. "I told myself you'd rejected me, rejected our life together." "Graham, let me finish," he said gently. "I was wrong. You didn't reject me. You rejected the facade I was trying to maintain, the perfect image that wasn't real. You were brave enough to walk away from something hollow, even though it looked good from the outside." Naomi's eyes glistened in the fading light. "It wasn't easy," she whispered. "I know that now," Graham said. "And I'm grateful, because losing you made me look at myself honestly for the first time in my life." He squeezed her hand. "I like the man I'm becoming." "I hope you do too." "I do," Naomi said softly. "Very much." Later that evening, as they stood in Graham's doorway saying good night, Naomi made a decision. "I don't want to go home tonight," she said quietly. Graham's eyes widened slightly. "Are you sure?" "Not for that," she clarified with a small laugh. "Just to sleep. I just want to be close to you." Relief and joy spread across Graham's face. "I'd like that too." That night they lay together in Graham's bed, her head on his chest, his arms around her. Nothing more than holding each other, but it felt like coming home after a long journey. "We should tell people," Naomi murmured sleepily. "Not hide anymore." "Whenever you're ready," Graham said, kissing the top of her head. "I'm ready," she replied. "Truth first, remember?" "Truth first," he agreed. "Love gladly." 2 months later, Graham stood in front of the Harborview building, now nearly complete. The affordable housing project had become a source of pride for the entire town. 60 new apartments for local teachers, nurses, and service workers who otherwise couldn't afford to live in the increasingly expensive coastal community. "It's beautiful," Naomi said, standing beside him. "You should be proud." "I am," Graham said. "Not just of the building, but of what it represents." In the month since the hearing, much had changed. Tyler had received probation and community service. Davis Construction had lost their license. Vivian had stepped back from Graham's business entirely, focusing instead on her own PR firm and, surprisingly, volunteering with a local literacy program. And Graham and Naomi had grown stronger together each day. "The grand opening is next week," Graham said. I'd like you there. Officially as my partner, Naomi smiled. I'd be honored. Hand in hand, they walked along the boardwalk toward town. They no longer worried about who might see them together. Their relationship wasn't a secret anymore, though they still kept the precious details private just for them. I've been thinking, Graham said as they walked. About the lighthouse. What about it? Naomi asked. It stood through 100 years of storms. It's been a guide for lost ships, a warning of danger, a symbol of home. He stopped walking, turning to face her. Like us, we've weathered our storm, found our way back to each other. Naomi looked up at him, her heart full. Are you getting poetic on me, Graham Wilder? Maybe, he smiled. Is it working? Definitely, she laughed. They continued walking, passing shops and cafes where locals waved in greeting. At Marisol's, they stopped for coffee. Ethan was behind the counter with Marisol, the two of them now officially dating. My two favorite customers, Marisol grinned, already preparing their usual orders. How's business? Graham asked Ethan. Running smoothly, Ethan assured him. Everything's on schedule for the opening. As they chatted, Judge Benton entered the cafe. He nodded approvingly at Naomi and Graham before taking a seat by the window. He's still watching out for you? Graham asked quietly. Always, Naomi smiled. But I think he approves. Good, Graham said. Because I'm not going anywhere. They took their coffees to go, continuing their walk in the bright spring sunshine. The small watercolor of the lighthouse hung now in Naomi's living room, a reminder of their new beginning, their safe harbor after the storm. As they reached the actual lighthouse, Graham pulled Naomi gently to a stop. Remember our first kiss here? After the storm. Under the awning, she nodded. How could I forget? Graham looked nervous suddenly. I have something for you. From his pocket, he pulled a small box. Not a ring box, larger like a gift box. He handed it to Naomi. She opened it carefully. Inside lay a small gold lighthouse charm on a delicate chain. Graham, she breathed. It's beautiful. Turn it over, he said softly. On the back of the charm, tiny words were engraved. Truth first. Love gladly. Tears sprang to Naomi's eyes as she looked up at him. Our motto. For whatever comes next, Graham said, taking her hands. I'm not rushing and I'm not asking for promises yet, but I want you to know that I'm in this completely. The real me, loving the real you. Naomi touched his face gently. No more perfect image. No more, he promised. Just perfect truth. As Graham helped her fasten the necklace, Naomi felt a sense of peace she'd been searching for her entire life. They'd taken the long way around, through heartbreak and separation, but they'd found their way back to each other stronger than before. That evening, as they walked home hand in hand from dinner at Marisol's, the lighthouse beam swept across the sky above them. The watercolor painting Naomi carried, a gift from Graham celebrating her recent award from the Bar Association, was tucked carefully between them. Truth first, Graham whispered, squeezing her hand. Love gladly, Naomi finished, leaning into his shoulder. The sea glowed bright beside them as they walked home together, no longer afraid of storms or shadows, just two people building something real, a love strong enough to weather any challenge, bright enough to guide them home,